Welcome to Not Starving Artists, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Before we dive into the episode, I am so excited to share with you that my brand new online course, Cashed Up Creatives, is officially out now. Now, this course is for my artists with neurospicy brains, my bi-weekly paycheck cuties who just don't want a budget, or anyone who wants to get out of that paycheck to paycheck cycle and finally experience financial wellness. This course is for you. It's gonna help you get 3 months ahead on bills. It's gonna help you pay off debt while you still take vacations. It's gonna help you manage your fluctuating or consistent income with ease. You're gonna be able to confidently talk to your parents or partner about your money decisions. You're gonna be able to open a retirement account and invest your first or next $500. You're always gonna have surplus in your bank account, and it's gonna teach you how to ditch your scarcity mindset so you can feel abundant with money. Now, this is a self-study course, meaning that when you make your one-time payment of $247, you have immediate access to the course content for life. And on top of lifetime access, the best part about what I'm sharing with you today is that for the rest of 2025, I am going to be hosting live monthly office hours for anyone who has joined the course. Totally for free, included with the price that you pay for the course itself. I, of course, recommend joining as soon as possible because the earlier you join, the more of those monthly office hours calls that you are going to get to attend. I cannot wait to see you inside and to help you get cashed up. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We are talking about buy now, pay later programs today, and why this is a systemic corporate greed issue, not an individual failing issue if we need to use these programs, but then also on the individual personal level, how you can put yourself in a financial place to not need buy now, pay later programs like Klarna, like Affirm. And this is coming about, we're talking about this today because of the partnership that was just announced between DoorDash and Klarna. So if you haven't heard about this, all that means is that Klarna, the buy now, pay later program, is now partnering with DoorDash, right? The food delivery takeout service, to offer payment plans or deferred payments for delivery, right? So of course we've seen all the memes, all the jokes, all the TikToks about this for the past week or two if you're chronically online like I am. But there's been so many jokes about how crazy it is that as a society, we've gotten to a place where people would actually want to do the buy now, pay later on something like a takeout delivery situation. So I'm going to talk to you about what this partnership actually means, like DoorDash's publicity announcement. So when they're partnering with Klarna, we're going to talk about the history of buy now, pay later programs, installment programs, because they actually started in the 1800s. So we're going to go through the whole history of it and how they actually work. But one of the ways that these buy now, pay later programs make money is by partnering with merchants. And these merchants, like DoorDash, pay Klarna to be able to use their buy now, pay later services in hopes to increase the amount of money that's coming in from people who are able to now buy or get behind buying certain things they wouldn't at the higher price point. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're getting way too into the weeds. We're getting to all of that. But what they offer, what DoorDash now offers, is obviously pay in full like usual, but then they have a pay in 4 equal interest-free installment plan. So if your DoorDash delivery is $40, you would pay $10 in equal installments 4 different times. And then they have a pay later, which is allowing you to defer payments to a more convenient time. This one feels the most insidious to me. And again, we're going to get to all of this later. But the pay later option means that you could pay nothing right now and put the burden of paying for your delivery takeout down the road by a few weeks, right? And when we talk about the psychology around money, the psychology around spending, this is extremely dangerous that this is an option, okay? So the chief commercial officer of Klarna said, "A partnership with DoorDash marks an important milestone in everyday spending categories. By offering smarter, more flexible payment solutions for groceries, takeout, and retail essentials, we're making convenience even more accessible for millions of Americans." We're going to get to this later as well with the history of it, because this sounds quite similar to what companies were saying right before the Great fucking Depression. And then the head of product of money products at DoorDash said, "We're excited to partner with Klarna to enhance the convenience we offer. The most affordable way to order on DoorDash with added streaming and ride benefits at no extra cost," which is their Dash Pass annual plan. So anyway, so that's Klarna and DoorDash, okay? So how the fuck we got to Klarna and DoorDash? Let's go all the way back to the 1800s. And listen, we're going to go through a history lesson. We're going to talk about all these plans. And then, of course, I'm going to leave you with some actual practical ways to navigate buy now, pay later programs. I'm going to tell you the things, the like blanket benchmarks of these are the things that are good to put on payment plans, and these are the things that you should not be putting on payment plans, right? I'm going to give you some of those rules. And then we're going to talk about ways that you actually don't ever need to use these plans moving forward, right? Putting yourself in a place of financial autonomy where you can afford all the things right now that you desire. So we'll get there. So let's travel back, shall we, to the 1800s. Now, installment plans started, and there's a couple of places they started, but one of the root places was farmers in the 1800s needing equipment before harvest season, right? So farmers made their money cyclically, right? Like the OG freelancer, the OG self-employed baddie were these farmers, where they would have a huge harvest season and make all of their money, but then it would be scarce throughout the rest of the year. So let's say harvest season is, I come from a family of farmers and my dad works in agriculture, and I could not tell you when harvest season is. I'm sure it's different for different kinds of like crops and farms, right? All right, so let's say harvest season is in the fall. These farmers in the springtime might need a new, I should have even looked up what a piece of equipment, like sewing equipment, right? Or whatever they used back in the 1800s to like do their farming. They would need this big piece of equipment, but their big payday wasn't going to come until the harvest season in the fall. So these companies who produce these kinds of tech for farmers would say, hey, you can pay a little down payment here, and then you can pay installments up until harvest season when you're able to pay the rest of it off, okay? So that's what farmers would do because, and I will say, these farmers needed the money flow method, right? Being able to take your harvest money, that big chunk of money during the harvest, and make it last you through the entire year so that in the springtime, even when money wasn't coming in, you're able to afford that big tractor machinery that you need to sow your plants. They needed the money flow. I digress. So that's where installment plans started, right? Out of like a real necessity and need with farmers. But then it was also for, right, factory workers and this rising middle class who wasn't making enough to afford basic necessities like furniture and appliances, right? And this is when appliances were kind of a luxury good, right? So these companies were like, okay, we want to allow you to get the things that you need / like a little bit of luxury. So we're going to offer installment plans. And these were given directly by the company, the business, the merchant, right, to consumers. Then enter mass production during the Industrial Revolution. So now companies were making way more product, and this is where we started diving into the consumerist culture that we are currently in of just buying, consuming, getting all of the things. This is where it started. Companies with the the advancements that were happening during the revolution were able to just produce so much fucking more stuff. And now that they had more inventory, they were like, okay, well, all the people who can afford this inventory have already bought it. So now we need to get the people who can't really afford it to be able to buy it because we've got too much stuff, right? Instead of just making less stuff, right? They were like, here, how can we make more? So then this is what led to like the 1920s consumer boom, right? The roaring 20s, this is where also like consumerism became like a pivotal marker of that time period. Now, this is when advertising culture came into play. People were buying beyond their means because of these multiple things, right? There were installment plans that made luxury things or non-necessary things more accessible to people who might not be able to afford it. And because of advertising culture, right, companies realizing that they can play on human psychology to get you to buy things, buy all the things, especially things that you don't need, right? That started to be in our zeitgeist. And that was the first time that was really happening. And so people were buying things beyond their means, more than what they could actually afford. Okay? This was a huge reason why the Great Depression happened. So we had the stock market crash. So that was also a huge part of it, but it was in relation to this whole culture of people getting access to money via installment plans and via mortgages, via loans that they couldn't afford. So then at some point, that's gotta give, right? The money isn't there. The money was not there. And I don't know why we expected it to be there down the road. And so then people started to pull back because they couldn't make their payments. They were defaulting on payments. And then they stopped buying things, right? Which then caused the economy to suffer. And then you pair that with a stock market crash, Great fucking Depression. Okay? So the Great Depression happened. Slowly claw our way out of that, right? We rebuild. Then we as a society were like, hey, we probably need more regulations, more rules and guidelines to be able to responsibly give out loans, do installment plans, right? So there became a lot more regulations. And this is when credit cards came into play. So credit cards came into play and you had to get approved for a line of credit. There were a lot more things that you needed to prove, requirements to prove that you were a good person that was trustworthy with your installments, that you actually had the money available to you to be able to pay these back. This is part of why you have to enter in your yearly income when you apply for a credit card, because they want to make sure you have the wiggle room to be able to pay back these things. This is how they determine the amount of credit that they give you. All of these regulations were coming out of the Great Depression when there were basically no regulations, okay? So that's why credit cards and mortgages and credit checks, like all of that came to be, to prevent what happened in the Great Depression. But now, buy now, pay later platforms have entered the chat. Klarna, Affirm, Afterpay, sometimes like specific businesses and companies will offer their own version of it. PayPal has a version of it, okay? Buy now, pay later platforms are ways to get access to installment plans and not really lines of credit, but basically push off your payments, have someone else kind of cover it for you for the meantime until you pay it back later. So it basically is a line of credit. You're borrowing money from future you or borrowing money from another company. That's what a buy now, pay later program is. But the thing about these buy now, pay later programs is they don't undergo a credit check. You can get access to them basically no matter what. There are so few regulations and guidelines to be able to access this kind of money or these kinds of installment plans. What the fuck does that sound like? That sounds like what got us into the Great Depression to start with. So what's so crazy to me about where we've ended up is like we see the blueprint of what happened. We see the blueprint of what happened in the past. And here we are, right? Like companies, and this is where we're going to get into corporate greed. Companies are just looking for any ways they can bleed profit, right, out of their products, how they can get people to spend money, even if they don't have it, right? Like, let's just get people parting with their dollars. Let's keep consumerism up, especially as these companies are trying to solve for what I think societally everyone is feeling, which is cost of goods are going up, which means we buy less of the things that were easy to just like kind of waste money on in the past, we can't afford to waste money anymore. I mean, we've talked about this on this podcast a few weeks ago, right? And like what to do with your money in a recession. It's the same stuff we've always talked about, just with a heightened urgency or a heightened importance, which is only spend money on shit you care about and that brings you joy, true joy, and let everything else fall away. So the stuff that used to like kind of be able to be absorbed into your monthly money flow, your monthly spending, might not be able to be absorbed as easily because the margins have gotten a little bit tighter just with cost of living going up, okay? So these companies are trying to remedy that. So they're like, okay, how can we make it as easy as possible for people to part with their dollars in like a split-second decision, which is now how we got to fucking payment plans for food delivery, okay? So when we talk about this, again, there's two things that are going on here. We have the big picture, meta, corporate greed, societal issue. And then we have us personally on the individual level. And with now the backdrop of what we've landed in, specifically here in America, how are you going to play that game against this game board, against this backdrop, right? In this current deck of cards, that hand of cards that you have been given. Okay, so we're going to talk about both of these things. So let's talk about debt for a second, because we've talked about debt on this podcast before. You all have heard me talk about debt. Debt is not a bad thing. Debt can be such an incredible tool in order to up-level you, in order to give you space, in order to give you wiggle room. We do not say no to debt, like blanket statement around these parts, right? Debt can be a wonderful tool. But we have let it creep into too many areas of our lives and we have normalized it. As I was reading up on some of the like nitty gritty stuff about these buy now, pay later programs, I was reading about like how they got in so much popularity, right? Over credit cards and over other kinds of installment plans. And one of the things is that people prefer buy now, pay later programs because they don't want to have debt. So for a lot of people, buy now, pay later programs feels different than debt. But like, do not get it mistaken. Buy now, pay later is debt. Because what debt is borrowing money from someone else or borrowing money from future you. So when you're put on a buy now, pay later installment plan, that company is basically covering you for the time being until you can make your payments. Someone's got to foot that bill, right? Klarna's footing that bill, Affirm's footing that bill, and future you is footing that bill, right? So current you might be paying $10 this month, but then you've decided that future you needs to pay $30 a month or $30 total to past you, right? And this is just a small example. So this is debt, but what these Afterpay programs have done is it makes it feel like it's not debt. It's like removed the weight and the heaviness of what credit card debt is and tricked you psychologically into feeling like it's not debt. Now, y'all know that I don't like saying hard and fast, black and white rules over here at Not Starving Artist. That is not the vibe here. But what I will say is that doing a buy now, pay later program or going into debt to order delivery is a no. That's a no. If you can't spend that money, or you have such a mindset block about paying in full for delivery, it means you should not buy delivery. We're going to talk about that when I get to, I'm going to give you some blanket black and whites of like, here's what to do buy now, pay later for, here's what not to do buy now, pay later for, right? I'm going to give you some of those at the end. But this is like, debt is a tool, but that's an intentional debt with a purpose and made in full awareness. We don't want to accidentally create debt and borrow money from our future selves out of avoidance, out of not being aware, out of anything that is not made with future you in mind, with again, like you don't want to end up in the fuck it blackout. When we talk about the fuck it blackout, and if you haven't heard me talk about that before, the fuck it blackout is the moment where like you're trying to decide if you want to buy something or not, and then the chatter in your brain gets so heavy and you're trying to justify it and you're trying to like decide what's actually good and you're battling between what's the responsible thing and what I want right now, and it gets too much and then you just say fuck it. And you go into a blackout so that you don't have to think anymore, and you click buy, you get the thing, and then you end up in like a shame guilt spiral later on because like you actually didn't want to buy the thing, or like you did but you didn't make it with like full awareness, so now you're like, wait, but like I didn't like that I made that decision that way, and it just gets really really messy. So you want to avoid the fuck it blackout. But why I said I think it's so dangerous that there's a like pay later option with Klarna and DoorDash is because that's going to make the fuck it blackout so much easier and so much harder on future use finances, or like anyone who uses that option, right? It's going to make the fuck it blackout just that much easier, right? To buy all the things during it. So again, debt is not bad. Debt can be a tool, but it creeping into every area of our life is when it starts to get a bit insidious, and where it's really going to cause issues for future you. So this is where I hear so many people feel like they can't get ahead. Like they just feel stuck and they're trying to build up their savings, but then they're breaking even and then their income dips and they can't. And it's just like, it feels like they're trying so much to like crawl out of a hole. And buy now, pay later programs, any kind of payment plan, any kind of installment plan is going to contribute to that feeling. Now, I want to tell you right now, you are going to be able to get out of that hole. And I would like to say that it's not even a hole, right? Your brain is just telling you that it's a hole. This is one of the things I do with my clients right away, is we really get down to the nitty gritty of like, you're not actually in a hole. Here's just the math of what you're doing. And here's the trajectory of where we're actually going to get you in X amount of months, right? It's just math at that point. So it's just about staying conscious now about what you choose to put on a payment plan or an installment plan and what you don't. So the other thing I want to say is corporations, right? This is corporate greed. This is companies, right? Trying to squeeze out every dollar from the general population, knowing full well that they can't afford it, knowing full well that we are in a cost of living crisis, right? But their job is to boost profits, right? So it makes sense that they're doing what they're doing, but then we as consumers let them get away with it. Now, I'm not saying this is not victim blaming, but what I want to shine a spotlight on is that corporations are doing this. We can see exactly what they're doing. But instead of us saying, no, we can't afford it, right? We don't want to spend money on that. If I don't have it in my savings account, if I don't have it in the bank account in full, I'm not getting it. Instead of saying that, which would cause them to have to adjust, right? If we said, no, cost of living, here are my spending priorities, absolutely not. Maybe I am not able to buy DoorDash right now, then DoorDash will have to adjust their business model and how they run their company in order to stay in business. But instead, we've just said, okay, right? And let corporations get away with this, right? So we are adjusting for them. We are putting ourselves on payment plans instead of using our spending, our dollars as powerful decision makers, right? To force them to have to change their business practices. That's what I want us to start thinking about, right? Like, our spending is a form of activism. How we spend our dollars speaks volumes. It does. I'm going to do a podcast episode about girl math next week, where we're going to talk about the dark side of girl math and how to actually spend guilt-free. But we're going to talk about this next episode as well. This idea that especially women, we have so much power with how we spend. And I want us to remember that, right? Where we can say absolutely the fuck not to these installment plans. You need to lower your prices. We need to figure out this cost of living crisis, because otherwise we're all just going to pull the fuck back because our bank accounts are telling us no. And we are listening to our bank accounts. Why? Because we've got a good ass relationship with our money that we don't want to fuck up, because we've got our future selves in mind, because we know there is a recession storm that we are going to have to weather in the years coming. Now, this is also not like doomsday thinking. This is looking at the reality of what we are moving into. And I'd rather us be over-prepared than under-prepared, okay? So now I want to talk about following the money. So when we think about these Afterpay programs, these installment buy now, pay later programs, it feels like you are getting a great deal. You're like, interest-free payments? Of course I would do that. Why would I pay $40 now when I could pay $10 over the course of 4 months? That makes me feel less spending pain. We're going to get to spending pain in a second. So we have to follow the money, right? So if something is being given to you for free, I'm also going to do a whole other podcast episode on this as well. When you follow the money on something, if you are paying something with no money, right? If you are not paying for something, if you are getting interest-free payments, if you are being told this is a free service, the money is coming from somewhere. Remember the society that we live in. She is a fucked up version of capitalism, right? So there is money happening somewhere. So with these buy now, pay later programs, we have to follow that. So the first way that these buy now, pay later programs get paid is by the merchant, okay? So like I said before, DoorDash is paying Klarna to be able to use their installment plan services. Now, why on earth would DoorDash pay Klarna to be able to use their installment plan services? It's because they know human psychology and how our brains work. And if they can reduce spending friction so that more people are willing to part with their dollars, that is going to be a good investment for them. So when we follow the money, it's the human psychology part, right? They know that you are more likely to spend your dollars if it is a much lower number that you have to pay right now. That feels sticky and icky, right? So we follow the money and we get somewhere sticky and icky. Now, the other thing is the money can also come from paying high fees if you have a late payment, if you want to choose a longer installment plan, right? So this is now where like credit card interest is the same thing. You're going to pay an interest, you're going to pay someone to be able to borrow that money, right? Have that debt. So that's another way that these programs are getting paid, right? You are paying to have borrowed money, have borrowed time, basically. The other way that these companies make money is by data monetization. So they might not be selling your data directly, but they have a lot of info on your spending habits, how you spend your money, right? Because everyone's using these programs, and they are using that to sell things to other platforms, right? So it's not like your data is directly being sold, but there is data monetization happening within these programs, which also feels a little sticky and a little icky. So when I say follow the money, that's what I'm talking about. Like, do you like how this company is making money and how you are basically paying for this service? You are paying in the willpower it's going to take you to have to fight against the psychology that they're using against you. You're paying with your data, and you are paying with your literal dollars if you pay late fees. That's what you're paying with. So do you like that or do you not? That's what I mean by follow the money. So I want to talk about spending friction here for a second. So spending friction, this is like that stuff that goes on your head where you're like, do I really want it? It's kind of expensive. No, I don't really. Or like you have to go and like get cash out to be able to pay for something, or like you have to walk to the store. Anything that's like a teeny bit of a wall between you and parting with your dollars, every company's biggest focus is to reduce that as much as possible. They want to get you to part with your dollars so easily and so simply, right? Reducing spending friction. And why they do that is because of money psychology, because you don't have to feel financial pain now. Now, when I say pain, it's because spending in this context is usually talked about as like financial pain, because we feel like parting with our dollars is more painful than the joy when we receive money, right? So it is actually like a very visceral response for us to not want to part with our money. And if we think about like evolutionary, biologically, that's a good thing that we have. It is good that we feel that when it comes to spending our money, that we have thought and intention and friction behind parting with our resources, so that we think fucking twice about, do I really want this? Do I really want to trade this for what I'm receiving? Does this actually make sense for me? Okay? You want that friction, but companies don't want you to have that friction. Buy now, pay later is a huge friction buster, which is why they are so big right now, because it makes it so much more easy to click pay, click submit payment, etc. Credit cards, Apple Pay, the subscribe via the apps that you already have, all of these things have reduced spending friction. which is also why people are spending more than like they ever have before, because it is so easy. Apple Pay doesn't feel like real money. Your Venmo doesn't feel like real money. We've gone to be a cashless society, basically. And cash was like this physical thing that you parted with, but now you just tap. And if you don't look at your bank accounts, you don't really see it. Reducing spending friction. And if you can do that, if you can Apple Pay, but the only number you see on your account right then and there is $0 with a little asterisk down at the bottom, pay $17.92 later in 2 months. Oh my God, it's so easy. There's no friction with that whatsoever. I want you to add more friction to your spending. It is so good for you to have more intention around your spending and making choices around the actual price of a product, not just the payment plan. We've gone into this culture of being so excited about how low of a payment plan you can get versus making a decision based on what the total cost of an item actually is. You will see this with car companies all of the time. This is the only way they market, is how low the monthly payments are. They don't talk about the total price of the car ever. They only talk about how low the monthly payments are. Right? But the thing is, when we're talking about buying something, we're always going to be talking about the total price of something. But because we're so like in the moment with our money, usually it feels like thinking about the payment plan and how little we can part with month to month to month, rather than thinking about a huge purchase, right? It's so much easier to think that way. And again, this is where this is now a corporate greed societal issue, economic issue, because the cost of living has gotten so high. When we think about buying something like a car, that kind of money for most of the population feels really out of reach. So we have no option but to look at the monthly payment plan. Okay. But for other things, right, this is now bled into so many other areas of our life, with clothes, with food, with subscriptions, with furniture. Oh my God, we're going to get to furniture in a second. There are so many things that this has bled into where now every single thing is on a payment plan. There are too many payment plans for all of the things everywhere across the board. Okay. So again, when we get to that individual responsibility, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's about deciding what you will allow payment plans to be on in your life and what you won't, okay? Now, when we're talking about spending friction, the reason you want spending friction is because you do want discomfort in your money. You want to feel the reality of your money. You want to like feel the realness of your financial situation. What buy now, pay later programs have done is it allows you to not really know the reality of what you can afford and what you can spend on and whatnot. Because it's like you can kind of have everything. You can kind of have anything and everything you want, no matter what your income level. And while like energetically and abundance wise, I want you to have that thought, I want you to feel the discomfort of not being able to right now, because discomfort is the only thing that leads to change, right? Wanting to be somewhere other than where you are is what will cause change. But if you are able to have anything and everything you want right now, because of payment plans, because of installment plans, because money doesn't really feel real, it's not going to be a catalyst of change to increase your income, to switch the job, to start the business, to look for other ways to make an extra $500 a month. That's what I teach inside of my course. That's a training, right? You are not going to feel that catalyst because it's not strong enough for you, because you don't feel enough discomfort. I was working with a client recently, two clients actually, where one of our big focuses was because there was so much that was on a credit card and because there was so much automation in their money flow. And automation is great, but automation can easily tip into avoidance and not having to look at your money. So even though we had set up the money flow, there were anytime she would go too low in her flex account, there was an auto pull from her savings account. So it kind of felt like her checking account was endless money. And so there was so much automation that was going. There was stuff that was on credit cards. So she wasn't able to get a clear picture and a clear feeling of what she could actually afford, what was actually coming in, and what she could actually spend on within her current financial constraints. Once we did that, the catalyst for her to boost her sales, to launch another product, to do another thing, that hit because we put her into the actual reality of her money. That is what discomfort does. You want that. You want to see the reality of your money. Credit and buy now, pay later programs pull you out of really being able to see the reality of your dollars. And not staying aware of your money as a whole can make it feel like you're in a different reality, right? Like, as long as I don't look at my money, I don't know what's going on in there, right? Like, we love that ignorance girly energy because it feels really good for us to not have to feel discomfort and not have to make decisions. But you want that, because if you want to up-level your financial life, you're going to need that catalyst of like why you actually want to move forward and shift. The other thing I want you to think about is when you use payment plans, when you use debt, you are borrowing money from future you, okay? And she is so gracious and she is so lovely and she has your fucking back. So if you do desire to put something on a payment plan and go into debt, she's fucking got you, girl. But here's the thing. You don't want to be like robbing her back pocket so that you can get your takeout tonight. You don't want to be robbing her back pocket because you want the perfectly curated living room set when you don't have the money in the bank account to actually afford it, right? These sorts of things, that's going to pull money away from her where she's trying to make these future moves for you. That version of you is trying to invest. That version of you is trying to get 6 months ahead on bills, right? But you keep taking money out of her pocket so that her payment plans month to month are racking up and she's got so much less wiggle room to be able to do the things that you want her to do for you in the future. Okay? Pushing the pain down the road, that's what payment plans are doing. Like when we're talking about financial pain, spending pain, you're pushing that down the road to the future you who's going to have to deal with it. Like you might not have to deal with it right now. You might not have to fully feel the effects of your spending now, but someone down the road is going to have to. Even if that version of you is 50 years down the road, you're going to have to feel it at some point. This is like, I think of our physical health. And when we are young, we feel so invincible. We can eat anything. We have so much energy to work out and do things, but sometimes we don't even work out and do things. We're just living our life, doing whatever, binge drinking every single weekend. Like these sorts of things, but then they catch up to us, right? You hit your 30s, 40s, and then you hit your 50s. And if you have not taken care of yourself, if you have just kept pushing that pain down the road, 50-year-old you is going to be fucked, okay? Same thing financially. It's easy to not really feel the effects of your spending right now because you've got a little bit more in your credit limit. You can do these buy now, pay laters. You can push that off to the future you. But then at some point, you're going to hit your 50s and you're going to be like, oh shit, I don't have enough to retire. Or like, oh, I got to keep hustling, huh? I got to stay at this catering job as I'm still auditioning because I have nothing in my bank account, right? And that's like, I don't want to say worst case scenario. I'm like taking you down that road and I don't like going there, but like I want you to be thinking about that. That's what happens when you keep thinking like, I'll figure it out later. I'll worry about it later. Later's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, my dude. Okay? So I want you to be thinking about that. Now, I want to like come back to the present because sometimes that future stuff, sometimes really thinking about like our 50-year-old self, our 60-year-old self, I mean, it actually does feel like a stranger in our brain, okay? Like they have done MRI scans about it. When we think about our future selves, it registers in the same part of our brain as a stranger, not the part of ourselves when we think about like me, okay? So we're going to come to the current you now. We're going to try and make some shifts in your mindset and talk about current day, okay? I want you to learn to flex your saving muscle. So a lot of times what these buy now, pay later programs will have you feeling is that you don't need to like save money for something you want. You can have it right now. That's instant gratification, right? We know instant gratification. She's cute. We love her, right? But we also need that like long-term gratification. We need that delayed gratification. I want you to focus on putting space between you wanting something and you buying something, okay? So when we're talking about flexing that saving muscle, a lot of people don't save and put themselves on all these installment plans for everything under the sun because they actually don't believe in their capabilities as a saver, okay? This is part of why I want all of you to be in a bank like Ally Bank that has a savings account that allows you to put money in different buckets so you can actually label them furniture for new apartment, beach vacation this summer, anniversary vacation, headshots, new wardrobe, new Laducas, whatever it is, you are able to save up for these things. And I want you to start flexing that muscle. I want you to open that savings account. I want you to create those buckets. And I want you to start flexing, not buying the thing when you want it. It's when you want it, you create the bucket for it. And you start saving for it. And then how much more delicious it's going to feel when you get to pay for that thing in full with the money you actually have in your savings account. This is where true abundance actually comes into play. When you actually feel abundant, it means you feel capable of always having the money you need to pay for whatever you want. But what has happened is we've like gone too far in that direction where it's like, I'm just going to buy whatever I want and I'm going to know that the universe is taking care of it. But that's putting you on a backlog where like you buy the things and then the money comes in, but then you have to pay off the things. This is why I want you to get 3 months ahead on bills. I actually want you to be like 3 steps ahead of where your money actually is. I want you to already have the money in the bank and then some when you want to buy something. I want you to already be 3 months ahead on bills when your income dips, so that way you don't have to stress. You already have the money to support yourself. I want you to be ahead in your finances. I don't want you to have a backlog. The backlog is what causes weight, what causes anxiety. Now, you can remove that anxiety with mindset work and emotional regulation while you are getting ahead, but the goal is to always be ahead with your money. So true abundance is knowing that you are able to save up actual cash. You are willing to receive money now, knowing the thing you want, and then buy the thing. Not buy the thing and push yourself into a corner where now you have to make that money or else you're going to be fucked and destitute, right? That's not real abundance. That's saying that the only way you can feel abundance is if you're backed into a corner. How much more spacious it feels when you say, I get to feel abundant and I have options. That's true abundance. And that's what flexing your saving muscle does. Now, we got to talk about the skill of spending. Skill of spending. This is why I say over and over and over again that the skill of spending is the most important money skill. Because what these buy now, pay later programs prey on is the fact that you hate spending. I mean, you love buying things. You love shopping. You love getting the things you want. But when you actually think about spending money, parting with dollars, you hate it. You love when you can get those payments as low as possible. You hate having to use your savings to buy the thing that you've actually saved for. It's because you have not learned the skill of spending, or you are not proficient in the skill of spending. The skill of spending is intentionally using your dollars to improve your life and buy you the things that you truly desire. That's the skill of spending. It's full awareness and being excited about the exchange of money for a service, the exchange of money for a good, because you are fully present. You know that you actually want it. You know what the ROI is going to be. That's what the skill of spending does. Okay? When you love spending money and you learn to spend it well, you won't even desire these programs. Like I'm not like tempted or excited about when I see like the Klarna thing pull up or the PayPal thing pull up. I'm just like, no, like I'm going to pay in full. And if I have feelings about paying in full for something, interesting. I want to sit with that feeling and figure out why before I hit pay, rather than just trying to reduce the friction so I like don't have to think about it and I could just buy it now. Okay? So with my clients, when we first start working together, this is what we're working on. We're starting to flex the skill of spending, but the first thing we do is we have to get the real picture of your money. Okay? So the first call or two that we have together, we're writing out your entire financial ecosystem. This is like getting financially naked. This is the part that can feel really vulnerable and why a lot of my clients are happy to be working one-on-one with me, right? That private container where we can go through it together, where they can feel all the feelings that come up when we list out all their bank accounts, we list out all their numbers, we shove them into the reality of their finances. And that is a beautiful thing because you know what your actual baseline is. So that's what we do to start. And then if we realize that you're not breaking even, right? If you are spending more than is coming in, and if you have fluctuating income, if you're a freelancer, we do this over the course of a quarter, over the course of a whole year. We see the big picture. But if you're not breaking even, our first job is to get you breaking even. So you're not having to borrow money from future you all of the time. So you're not having to put anything and everything on a payment plan. You're breaking even. And we might do this by organization. We might do this by assessing your spending. We might do this by assessing your income. It might just be a mindset block. This is where we diagnose one of your biggest money leaks, okay? Then our goal is to get you 3 months ahead on bills, right? We're getting you on like the front foot. We want to clear out the backlog. We want to get you 3 months ahead on bills. And then we're going to add more savings buckets so that we can pull you away from needing these buy now, pay later programs and put savings buckets into your life so you can get used to flexing your saving muscle and getting used to spending full chunks of cash on things that you desire, because that is a beautiful act that we have forgotten the art of, okay? And then we focus on investing. Then it's about supporting future you now. Then it's like you don't need to borrow money from future you anymore. You're actually giving money to future you, right? That's what investing is. We flip the tables, and that's where we ultimately want to get you, okay? There is no world in which any of my clients leave a coaching container not ahead of where they came in. And this is because you can't unknow the stuff that we work on together. Once you see your financial reality, you can't unknow it, right? Once you start learning these tools, mindset tools and practical tools, once you implement the money flow method, you literally cannot go back to the way it was, because you see how good it feels to not be stressed about your dollars, to not be confused about your dollars, that even if you start to slip back the other way, you're like, wait, I gotta get back to what felt so good. You can't unknow this stuff, okay? If you're interested in working privately with me, there is a link in the show notes where you can fill out a form to get on a sales call with me. Sales calls are totally free. That's a chance for us to get to know each other. I'm gonna ask you lots of questions about your money struggles and your money goals. We'll talk about what we would do together inside of a coaching container and the exact things that we would accomplish and how we would accomplish them. So that's what we do during that time together. So again, that link is in the show notes. All right, so now I'm going to give you a cashed up creative best practice for buy now, pay later, for payment plans, for installment plans. I'm going to tell you what should be on a payment plan, or what can be on a payment plan, and what shouldn't be, what to never put on a payment plan. Now, going into this, if you have something on a payment plan that's in the don't ever put it on a payment plan list, that's okay. We're not going to shame ourselves for decisions that we made financially. Because at the end of the day, when you made that decision, that made the most sense for you. You were making the best decision with everything you had at the time, with what you could at the time. There is no shame here. But I want to give you these two lists as a little bit of like tough love, kind of shocking us back into the reality of our money and how we should actually be functioning with spending and with our payments, okay? So, payment plans. There are 3 things that I would say you can use payment plans or installment plans for, okay? First thing, mortgages, real estate, housing, okay? Having a mortgage, that is something that I believe is A-okay. Now, with that, looking at the total price of the real estate or the house that you're buying, rather than just what would it cost month to month to month, right? Looking at the monthly cost, of course, as well, but right, like looking at the actual terms of the loan. Second thing, coaching, education, personal development. But I will put a caveat here. Maximum 2 at a time. When I first started my business, there were coaching programs, courses, education, personal development things that I wanted to spend money on in order to receive a return on investment, to be able to grow my income, to be able to put myself in a place where then I could pay in full for these kinds of things in the future. So what I did was, my rule was 2 at a time. So I'm going to buy a coaching program, or I'm going to buy an education course, and I'm going to use it and get my return on investment to be able to up-level my income, to be able to make more, to have more in savings, so that next time I'm able to pay for another thing totally in full. So when I think about businesses, I think debt has gotten really normalized in business, especially in the online business world, of like just invest in everything, and there isn't really super intentional ROIs. And I see a lot of people do way too many things at one time. But there is an importance in being able to like believe in yourself, put that faith in yourself if you do want to grow something or do something, right? Personal development wise, like I even think a life coach, if you're trying to get yourself out of a rut or something that you're stuck in, it is okay to put a life coach on a payment plan, on an installment plan, right? These sorts of things. When we're talking about your well-being, like your life trajectory, these things are so important, and you might not have the money available to you, which might be the exact reason why you want to put something on a payment plan. But I want to say max 2 at a time, because I want you to be able to actually get your return on investment, to get your money back, or the ROI that's not financial, right? The ROI that you actually wanted from it. Like, let's say it's a life coach, right? Let's say it's a marriage coach. Let's say it's something else. Let's say it's a different kind of education course. I want you to receive the benefit before you throw money at something else. Because sometimes I see with these things, people are just throwing money to try and solve a problem without really understanding what the core problem is. So that's why I say it's A-okay, but max 2 at a time. And then the third thing, maybe a car, right? Just with what's going on in the world, how expensive cars have gotten, even used cars, maybe a car, but focusing on the total cost, looking at the total cost as well as the monthly payments. Those are the big 3. Okay, those are the only 3 that I recommend and say to put payment plans on. Now, things that you should pay in full for, always. Big one, furniture. Furniture. I see so many people have a credit card devoted to furniture debt, furniture purchases, because they needed to furnish their new apartment or furnish their new home. Now, what I also want to say here is that, like, if you are in a position, like I had a client who she had a breakup and had to move apartments like immediately without any warning. And she needed to completely furnish a new place, and it was emotional turmoil. And that was something that she just had, she had no choice, right? So she had furniture on a credit card that she was paying off for that reason. Okay. So when I'm going through this list, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. There's always going to be caveats, but I'm giving you my blanket statement so that we can kind of, again, shock ourselves into what's normal and what's not. Furniture, if you are planning on moving, right? Moving to a new city, moving to a new apartment, etc. Furniture savings should be a part of what you are putting money away for pre-move. Right? You're going to be saving money for the broker fee, for your first month's and last month's rent, right? That security deposit. You're going to be saving money for like that first month of upkeep costs. But then I also want you to be saving money for a couch, for a bed, etc. Now, this might feel like a big chunk of money, but yes, exactly. Moving is a big chunk of money. So I want you to have that in your brain as like, this is a rule of thumb. And if you can't afford the nice $6,000 couch, we're going to find one on Facebook Marketplace. That's actually what my partner and I did. When we moved into this apartment in New York City, we were moving fully on my income. My partner hadn't gotten a job yet, or he had just gotten his offer letter when we were making all of these decisions, but he hadn't gotten his first paycheck yet, right? And he was using his savings to get him through a whole year of not being employed. So it was my income. And when we were looking at all of the things we wanted to like keep in savings, the things that we were spending on, it didn't make sense for us to completely refurnish this apartment. So the people who lived here before us, they had a couch. It was this like gray kind of like old style couch that had like the remote control or the buttons on the side where it would like flip up the footrest. So it was like, and you would like press the button and the footrest would go up. So like that was the couch, and it was like a plug-in couch. That is not a couch that Brady and I would have chosen or bought, but they were like, hey, like if you want to buy this couch from us, it'll be like $150. And we were like, yeah, like that will get us through until we build up money with like his income that's coming in now too, to get a couch that we actually are really excited about. Same with our bed frame, right? Our bed frame is the one that was here when we moved in. they were like, yeah, we'll throw that in for $50. And we were like, all right. Again, not a bed frame we would have chosen. We got this, we have a lamp that's currently still in our apartment that was down in the basement when we got here that was getting thrown away, but like it works perfectly fine. Same with our dining table. So when I think about furniture, I think there's become a culture of like perfectly curating your furniture, getting every single piece that you absolutely want, right? Creating a Pinterest picture. And that is leading people to have to put these things on a credit card, to go into debt, to put them on an installment plan. And I want you to think about like, what would actually happen if I only used the money that I had in my bank account to buy furniture? Let's just like put that on the table. What happens? I'm working with a client right now who he really loves like aesthetics, home, curation, art, etc. And that's one of the things we're currently working on. What would it feel like if you put yourself in a room that was not perfectly done, that was not perfectly curated? Right? What would actually happen in your body, and can you sit with that discomfort? So I want you to think about that. Furniture, that's on this list. Vacations, right? Flexing the muscle to save up for a vacation so that you get to live in that phase of desire. You live in that phase of getting excited and wanting and that juicy deliciousness. Now, sometimes vacations pop up that are very last minute that you like want to go. For example, my sister, she found out that she was cast in an all-trans production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown that is happening at the end of April, right? And this was kind of a last-minute trip when she found out. And I was like, well, obviously I want to come see you. Like, she's playing Lucy. I'm so excited to see her. I haven't seen her in a musical since like high school, I think, when she was like in The Grinch. I can't remember what role she was playing, but I haven't seen her in a musical in so long. And so my whole family were flying out to see her. That was a last minute trip that like I didn't really have a lot of time to save for, but I have buffer money in my savings account, my opportunity fund, money that is available for me to use in cases such like this. But if I didn't have that money, this would have been a vacation where I'm like, yeah, if for some reason I didn't have the cash in the bank, or I wanted to like put that on a credit card for a month while I pull the cash together to get it, that would make sense. So do you see how I'm giving like caveats for each of these things? But as a blanket rule, in order to be able to have a caveat, to be able to make an exception to the rule like this, you need to live your life under the blanket guideline of paying for vacations in full. Right? Deciding that you're going to have all the money in the bank before you book the all-inclusive resort, right? Okay, so vacations. The other thing is tech. Phones, computers, all of these things. Again, these companies have gotten really good with their marketing of like, only pay this much and you can get a totally new phone. But like, what's the total price of the phone? And if I think about, like, I don't even know what the total price of an iPhone is right now, because my entire back of my screen is cracked on my phone. And it's been cracked for like 3 years, just completely shattered on the back. But the camera still works fine. I got an OtterBox on it. The OtterBox is kind of getting destroyed too. But when I think about buying a brand new phone for like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, like, for me, the friction there, it doesn't feel worth it to me right now because I still have a perfectly working phone, okay? Even though she's shattered on the back. I haven't even fixed that because I'm like, I don't even care. It still works fine. But when I think about like, oh, only pay like $40 a month for a new phone, my brain goes like $40 a month. Yeah, like $40 makes sense for me to fix my phone. But if I'm thinking about the total price, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, again, extenuating circumstances. Your computer falls into the bathtub, right? I have been close. I have been close to that happening with my like wonky bath shelf. But if that happens, right, and you don't have the money, of course, put it on a payment plan, of course. But this is where I want you to be thinking about like, but then how can you create savings so that if you haven't planned to get a new piece of tech and your computer falls in the water, you are able to then pay in full for it, right? From another savings bucket, from the money you have in the bank. I was talking to my partner about this because we were, during our financial CEO parties, we talk about our savings accounts. We talk about like the things we have going on. He had a lot of medical procedures that he had to get last year, like nothing life-threatening, but just like a lot of stuff he had to get done with his teeth, with his eye, with his, he had like a bit of skin cancer. Again, he's totally fine. He got it removed. It's all good. But he had to put some of these procedures on a credit card, right? Because our healthcare in this country is fucked up. Now, we're very blessed to have such good health insurance with his company right now. But even with that, he had these big chunks of money that he had to pay for procedures. So one of the things he's doing right now is he's like, I don't want to be caught off guard with a procedure. If it happens, we are manifesting no procedures in 2025. But if there was a procedure that came up that he wasn't expecting, he didn't have to put it on a credit card. He had a few $1,000s for a medical procedure where he could pay for it in cash. And that feels really exciting. And that feels like a lot of financial autonomy, being able to pay for something in full in cash. So that's what I want you to be thinking about as well. I'm going to end my list there, but with the 3 things that blanket rule you can put on payment plans, and everything else, pay in full. Everything else, pay in full. And I want you to sit with, if there is any discomfort coming up for you right now about the fact that there's only 3 things on the payment plan list, sit with that. Why? What are you afraid it's going to take from you? What are you afraid you're not going to be able to do? Why are you afraid you're not going to be able to do it? What would that require of you, lifestyle-wise, income-wise, just like moving about your life-wise, if you wanted all the things that you wanted and you could have them, but you were going to pay for them in full? What would that mean for you? What would that mean for your money skills? Paying in full is so sexy. Now, debt is wonderful if done intentionally, but like, what if the mantra that you get to have right now is paying for everything in full is so sexy and so luxurious? What if luxury means I can always afford everything I want in cash? And if I choose to put something on a credit card, if I choose to do a payment plan for something, I'm doing it with a very clear purpose and a very clear intention, and I am deciding that and feeling really good about that. It's not coming from a place of avoidance or from a place of I don't want to part with that many of my dollars. It's coming from a place of there's strategy behind why I'm doing this, because guess what? Paying in full is so sexy. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.